why would we define vegetables as humans? You realize that there's going to be 3 traits that make something a human. Would you like those three traits, bro? In a biological
by vegetables, I mean human vegetables, twin.
Human vegetables.
Yes, people who have no consciousness. This is like the most apparent thing ever.
What the fuck? Yeah, I still don't grasp that argument, bro. What?
It's not an argument. There is no premises. I'm telling you how we generally define personhood as. We wouldn't just give a human vegetable a trait of a person because we require consciousness. That's the general definition of personhood. So,
Bradley, go help your dog.
Bro, I don't.
Wait, so you don't consider?
Wait,
somebody who's been put in a vegetable-like state a human or like a person?
Bro,
are you asking me?
Yeah. So if your grandfather was put in a vegetable state, you wouldn't consider him a person.
No, not currently. I view him as a human, but at that point in time, yeah. So at that point in time, of course, because I said I value memories of the referent. The reference would be my grandfather. Obviously, I still morally value my grandfather. However, at that point in time, my grandfather cannot display any sort of consciousness, so I wouldn't say he's a person per se. However, I'll still morally value him, right?
So wait, yeah, would you say he's morally considered?
Yes, of course, because one of the traits which I gave for moral consideration was memories of the referent.
He doesn't have memories, though. He doesn't have memories.
No, I'm talking about our memories. I'm talking about our memories with the referent. We are the ones who prescribe moral value to individuals or entities.
So you're saying all moral consideration is just some feature that we apply to, given like.
Yes, we are the ones who apply moral consideration. So, for example,
couldn't your opponent just say that this thing is morally considered because he sees the thing, or like what? Like what?
Well,
weird.
I would, from my understanding, people can prescribe moral consideration however they want. However, when we debate or when we're on like formal discourse, I'd say you need to give me a reason as to why I'd value the way you're viewing it, because he's trying to convince me and the audience.
So you think the main topic is he's just trying to motivate you to agree with what he's saying,
not inherently even me.
Not trying to find some sort of actual conclusive idea of what personhood is or moral consideration is.
Yeah, so my bad for cutting you off. I was gonna say it's not even like necessarily me. He's trying to convince the judge, but yes, he needs to provide some sort of reasoning as to why we value this thing. Otherwise, I can just like deny it. So that got like unless we're in the debate setting.
Like you could use a flow argument, like, oh my God, please, Prince, bro. Like,
I
don't know how you're struggling. You can just do damn near anything.
What? Yeah,
go ahead, Prince.
I'm not even flow, nigga. Yeah, I'm finna rap.
It's not. I don't think it's really similar. Oh, FLO. Oh yeah, we can talk about it.
FLO, yes, FLO.
Yeah, we can talk about FLO. So, do you know why FLO sucks?
I'm not using that argument. Yeah, nigga.
Oh yeah, well, there's huge issues with FLO that.
Wait.
No, I'm gonna just talk with official. I'm just gonna talk with official. If he said it, you should use it. So official. The main issue with FLO is FLO. Well, the creator of FLO said that there is no moral distinction between a sperm cell and a utero. Well, that's biologically proven otherwise. There is reason as to why we would morally value a utero more than a sperm cell. So we would then need to prescribe via like reductio ad absurdum.
I mean, but given your conversation, he could just use a future like ours as a placeholder for updating his degree of justification and giving some type of other thing that's in line with some type of instrumental value, like that's in line with the whole theory of like future like ours in general. Like I think it's fine.
Yeah, so he could try and give an argument. The issue is he could try and give an argument, but the problem is I can just reductio ad absurdum and say, well, yeah, since you're granting this, then you would also need to grant this. And what I'm talking about is
but he can say that this thing is more morally considered because these things are going to die regardless. Like everybody knows the whole sex process. Like obviously certain things are going to make it into the area where it needs to go for the process. So obviously if we're not able to stop that and and that's just like a natural process. I don't think anybody's intuition really points to the idea that it's like morally absurd. That
I can't hear you, bro. Shin's dogs in the background are barking.
Yeah, I don't think it's an absurdum. Really, because we have grounded reasoning as to why we morally consider this particular thing at this state.
We
like, it doesn't matter if other things
the reason why FLO works in the first place is because we talk about potentiality of entity X, and then since we can do that, we can just regress it back to the point where, well, yeah, we would value the potential of that thing, so we would value the potential of this thing to the same extent, since the utero actually shares more properties. By the way, just a second. Since the utero actually shares more properties with the embryo than the embryo does with the fetus, so the issue here would be, how would we provide a symmetry breaker between a utero, embryo, and a fetus, especially when we consider the fact that utero holds more consideration? Go ahead.
Okay, well, there's different degrees of potential for each of them in like quantitative measure. And those can be potential symmetry breakers. You can just say like, oh, well, the symmetry breaker could be reduced down to some type of moral fact, and I can update my justification as belief because of an intuition that is commonly had, or something that's that's appeared in a scenario where I said this thing was morally considered. He could bring up his biology.
Okay, well, yeah, if we bring up that biology, that would support my point for the reason I already said, but we can talk about intuition.
No, because I said different aspects, like different states. Like as you get older,
it can be different states, but yeah, so it can be different states and different processes. Just a second. It can be different states and different processes. However, different states and different processes can also hold the same or not variable, but varying amounts of moral consideration. So when we say it's different states, we need to actually provide a reason as to why one state would be more valuable than the other. Now, you said that we can just refer back to a commonly shared intuition. The issue with like using intuitions as your arguments, our intuitions are nowhere near utilized in rational thinking, and generally just aren't accepted by rationalism.
They're nowhere. So you're saying, okay, well, we can talk about all those particular things, but all I was talking about is just with more traits, we have more potential ways and variables as like justifications that we could point to as the symmetry breaker, or we could just conclude it to like a type of moral fact. And then when you look at convergence and these things being expected under a scenario where moral facts are true, you can establish some type of inductive, abductive conclusion based off of those particular things. Like, we're not saying it's impossible. So intuition definitely can be used as some type of way to justify your degree of certainty about a thing, your belief about a thing, and update the probability of the thing.
Okay, so I have two questions, right?
Hold on. Before we do that, I do want to get into how it disagrees with rationalism and how exactly it does and how this thing is problem. Because as long as it's fine with like the rational belief principle, like, I think it's fine. Like,
yeah, so first I want to address the variables. I obviously agree, as already granted, that there are many variables which we talk about that can be distinct between these two processes. That's why I said they're distinct processes.
Are at different levels of the developmental process between.
I grant that these are different levels. No.
Yeah. Okay. So and then
I grant, but just a second. No. I'll let you talk. Don't like.
Okay. Go ahead.
So as I was gonna say, I grant that these are different level of processes. However, I don't grant that these different levels of processes would give more moral consideration to one than the other. Now, I'm asking you to tell me what the variables are after respond to other points you made. So
I'm saying they potentially can. I'm not making the claim that conclusively are. I'm saying they can.
Everything
point
can
to, and all you're saying. Yeah, but the whole condition that you've established for the whole line of argumentation is just prescribing some type of instrumental value to this thing. So like, when we compare it to like the sperm cell reductio and stuff like that, you can prescribe way more. You can give more instrumental value to a thing at its current state because of knowledge that you have about the thing. Like, okay, well, this thing is obviously going to live. These things are going to die because of how sex works. These
the issue
are naturally going to die. So you can inherently update the consideration of that thing based off of knowledge. That's commonly how we update our moral consideration of the thing. And it doesn't seem open to reductio.
Officially, you're not understanding my point. I'm not talking about the sperm cell reductio. The sperm cell reductio obviously fails because sperm cells individually
I'm just addressing multiple aspects of what you're saying.
Okay, well, I never mentioned the sperm cell reductio at any point in time. So I want to clarify why the sperm cell reductio fails and while mentioning a different form of reductio that needs to be addressed. The sperm cell reductio obviously fails because individually talking, every single sperm cell isn't gonna make it. However, we're
exactly.
But that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I agree. No, that's why the stem cell reductio fails.
Earlier. That's what I was saying.
No. The issue is the utero.
You said earlier
utero
it was a reductio to the flow argument.
Utero
but I was
is
like,
the reductio,
it's really not. Oh, well, I've already pointed out, like, I can point to these potential things, right, and prescribe some type of instrumental value based off of the qualities or features that they have at the current moment, and say that because this thing doesn't have this, I'm more justified in saying this thing has moral value. So I could say those are the potential symmetry breakers. I don't have to subscribe to potential one because, again,
You need to tell me why those variables. You need to tell me why those variables are going to be more morally considered than the other variables which the other entity has. So that would be
okay.
So what does the embryo have?
When we, I can say something like,
just a second, so I can clarify. Just a second, so I can clarify. What correlation is there between the embryo and the fetus the embryo doesn't have with the utero?
Embryo and the fetus. I think I'm confusing the terms between the embryo and fetus. Let's go over all three. But I know.
Can I just clarify something?
There's different aspects that they have as far as the.
So I was just gonna say there's a whole case study in biology made. So this is why Marquise only used this argument back when we were like literally retarded and had nothing capable of biological studies. So I can give you the case study as to why we actually share more things with the utero than,